Hey everyone, welcome to our Webster ABA overview. So, this is just a brief overview of the Webster ABA program. What we're going to talk about today is a little bit about who we are, the Master's in ABA, the Graduate Certificate in ABA, fieldwork, our thesis, our corporate partnerships, and then I'm going to direct you to where to bring your questions. So, a little bit about me. My name is Danny Pizzella. I am the director of the ABA program here at Webster. I am a doctoral level behavior analyst and I am licensed in the state of Missouri. I have been a behavior analyst for quite some time and I've worked in pretty much every setting you can with adults, with little kids, in schools, and clinics, and residential facilities, in home. And I really have a passion for teaching, especially online, because my area of research and my passion is disseminating behavior analysis and making sure that ABA is more accessible to people. So I'm happy to meet you all. I also want to introduce you to kind of our rock star person. If you've been speaking to someone about the program, they may even be the person who sent you this video, and this is David Stevens. We call him our certification officer. He has a big fancy title here in the School of Ed, but he is kind of our go-to person in the ABA program in terms of administration. If you aren't able to get a hold of me, or if you have a question regarding registration or just processes within the School of Ed, David is your guy. So let's talk a little bit about the programs. The first is our Master's in ABA. This is a 33 credit hour program. It is for students who don't currently have a master's degree and want to become board certified behavior analyst. All of the courses in this program are typically 8-week courses, and you're taking one course at a time with a few exceptions. That exception is going to be when you're doing your thesis, and we'll talk about that more in the future. This is all totally online, it's totally asynchronous. We are in the process of getting ABAI recognition and accreditation, which is important to note when we talk about certification pathways per ABAI and the BACB. So let's talk a little bit about the courses. This is a course list of all the courses that you have to take. So you'll take an introduction course, a principles course, a single subject research design course, an ethics course, a behavior change procedures course, a functional behavior assessment course, a supervision course, a basic experimental analysis of behavior course, a verbal behavior course, and then you'll also have a thesis course and a portfolio review. The portfolio review is a 0 credit hour course, and this is where you are able to prepare a portfolio of sample work. It's just a pass fail course, and you basically submit samples of your work, and this will help you get a job after you graduate. So it prepares you to have this kind of portfolio of work that you're able to submit to future employers when you go out to have those first jobs as a BCBA. So this is what a sample program of study will look like. Currently, all of our students start in the fall. So during the fall semester, for the first 8 weeks, you would take your intro course. For the second 8 weeks, you would take principles. Then in spring, for the first 8 weeks, you would take single subject research. And the second 8 weeks, you would take ethics. In the summer, you would take behavior change. And then in the fall, you would do functional behavior assessment during fall 1 and staff supervision during fall 2. This is also when you would begin your thesis. So thesis is going to be all semester long, but that's not going to be like a regular class. This is going to be you doing research. And so this will be, a full 16 weeks, but it won't be the same kind of course load. In the spring, you will have your basic experimental analysis course in spring 1, verbal behavior in spring 2. This is also when your portfolio review will be due, but this is something you'll be working on the whole time you're in school. So this will probably be done way before then. And then you'll also have your second semester of thesis. If you are in the graduate certificate program, this is a 21 credit hour program, and this is for people who already have a master's degree or are maybe doing a master's degree in something else, let's say counseling or special education, and you would also like to be a behavior analyst. This is for you. And so You are going to take the same courses that your students in the master's in ABA program will. You're just going to take less of them. So you're going to take that intro class, the principles class, the single subject class, the ethics class, the behavior change procedures class, the functional assessment class, and the supervision class. You will not be having to take thesis, nor will you have to do the portfolio review, experimental analysis, or verbal behavior. And this is what your program of study will look like. Again, this is a fall start only program, so you'll have intro, then principles, then single subject, then ethics, then behavior change, then functional assessment, and supervision. So you'll be done in a year and one semester. So let's talk about fieldwork. This is typically where people have the most questions. You are required to do fieldwork in order to sit for your BCBA exam. The fieldwork requirements change as of January 1st, 2027. If you're watching this video, you're going to take your exam after then. So you should be following these requirements. So let's talk about those and look through them a little bit. This is the document that shows you the fieldwork requirements for 2027 for the BCBA. You can find this just by Googling 2027 BCBA requirements and it'll come right up. So there are going to be two pathways to sit for your BCBA exam. The first is that you'll have a master's degree from an accredited or recognized program. That's why it's important when I was talking about the master's degrees that we're in the process of doing that, because this will make our master's degree pathway one. The second pathway will be behavior analytic coursework, which means you'll have a master's degree in something and behavior analytic coursework. This will be for our people in the certificate program. Okay, so you would be a pathway two person. Those are not very different, but I just want to point that out for you. So for pathway one, you'll have that master's degree, and then you'll do your field work, you'll pass your exam, and you'll have certification. And so that's what that will look like. Let's talk about what the field work itself looks like. There are two different ways that you can do field work. You can either have supervised field work, which is 2,000 hours, or concentrated field work, which is 1,500 hours. The supervisor qualifications are the same. You must have a BCBA to supervise you, who doesn't have disciplinary sanctions, has been certified for at least a year, and meets the ongoing supervision requirements. If you have a BCBA that's been certified for less than a year, they're still able to supervise you, but they have to receive special consultation from a qualified consulting supervisor. So there's some specific guidelines there that you can look at. If you're doing supervised field work, only 5% of your hours have to be supervised. If you're doing concentrated field work, 7.5% of your hours have to be supervised. You are able to accrue anywhere between 20 to 160 hours a month. The 20-hour minimum is required. So let's say you only work 10 hours in a month, that month does not count. That's really important to note. Also, you have to be observed with a client each training period. So each month, if you're doing supervised, it's 60 minutes cumulative. And if you're doing concentrated, it's 90 minutes cumulative. You also are able to do group supervision, but that can't be more than 50% of your time. So you have to have at least 50% of your time that you're being supervised. It's one-on-one you with your supervisor. And finally, we're going to talk about unrestricted activities. This is something we're going to go into a little bit more, but at least 60% of the total supervised fieldwork hours have to be unrestricted activities. And we'll talk about what that means in just a second. The last important thing to take away from this particular document is that because you will be doing this in 2027 or after, you need to use the special 2027 supervision forms. So if you click here, you will see that it opens 2027 fieldwork requirement forms. You must use these. If you just use the old forms, if you were to Google it and just use the old supervision forms, these supervision forms will not count, guys. So please, please, please make sure you are using the correct supervision forms with your supervisor. All right, so if you're doing pathway 2, It's going to be the same thing. You're just going to have that degree, your coursework, and your supervised field work. As you will see, it lists specifically what the behavior analytic coursework is. Our coursework is designed to meet these exact standards, so you don't have to worry about that there. You will have to have an attestation form filled out by me as the program lead, and so we'll talk about that a little bit more. Fieldwork requirements are exactly the same, okay? Um, CEU requirements, exactly the same, okay? It's just a little bit of a different process. So let's talk about restricted versus unrestricted. Um, for those restricted hours, they cannot be more than 40% of your field work. This is really important. You don't have to have any restricted hours, okay? You could have 0, but it can't be more than 40. Restricted just means simply things that usually an RBT does. This is just the work a behavior analyst doesn't typically do. This is more of that direct implementation. It's working at a technician level. Unrestricted work is the stuff that a behavior analyst does. You have to have at least 60% of your time be unrestricted, but it could be more or all of your time. And here are some examples of unrestricted. These are not the only things that count as unrestricted. Your supervisor at work should be able to help you figure this out. But these are just some examples, okay? So observing clients and collecting data, training staff or caregivers on programming or content, conducting any type of assessments, meeting with clients about behavior analytic programming or services, conducting behavior analytic assessments like functional analyses, stimulus preference assessments, skill assessments, those types of things, graphing and analyzing data, researching literature about a current client's programming so that you could update the programming, and then writing and revising programs. Remember, this is not everything that counts, it's just some ideas, okay? Here at Webster, we do not provide you a supervisor, okay? There is no practicum course. This is not something that we provide you with. We do, however, have the ability to help you find a supervisor. And so, depending on where you're at, we may have quite a few contacts in that area. We also have corporate partners, which we'll talk about further in. But there are lots and lots of options for us to help you find a supervisor, but you are able to work anywhere and like everywhere that you want, okay? If you're doing your thesis, there are some pretty specific requirements that we'll need from that site that you do your thesis work at. And so I'll share that with you in a future slide. But I do want you to know you are able to work anywhere that you want. There is no required practicum course. However, you do have to do your field work in order to pass your BCBA exam. And I highly recommend that you find a supervisor as soon as possible because you are able to start accruing those hours the moment that school starts. Okay. And so the first day of your first class, you can start accruing those hours. And like we talked about back here, it's quite a few hours, everybody. So if you do this over the course of your coursework, you'll be finished by the time you finish coursework, which means that you will be ready to sit for your BCBA exam. And the sooner you sit for your exam after taking your coursework, the better. Because this means that you'll be close to your academic coursework, you'll be ready to take that exam and be ready to pass, okay? So if you don't have a site yet to do your work, please reach out to me and I'm happy to help you find one. I have a really long list. Also, if you work somewhere and there's just not a BCBA to supervise you, I do also have a list of people that you can contract with to provide supervision in different locations. So one thing I want to jump back to is, like I said, this graduate certificate option, this pathway 2 that we talked about over here, is only available until 2032, okay? It gets phased out at that point. So this is something you need to have everything finished and ready to test by 2032 if this is the option that you're taking. If you are not going to test by then, you should move into the master's program as this will allow you to test whenever you need to. You will have an attestation you need to fill out and have signed. when it's time for you to test, you'll just send them over to me and I'll complete them as needed. If you are in the master's program, you will not have to do that because we're currently under ABAI review. And so you'll have a different way to apply for your exam. So let's talk about thesis. This is required for all of our master students. This is during the last 2 full semesters. Thesis could either be done at your work site, like I talked about earlier, or you could just do it at Webster. So let's say you don't have a work site that's going to work for this. You could do your thesis with Webster students. You could recruit from within the university, and you could do something like training students using behavioral skills training on how to implement something. And you could do this all remotely, okay? There's lots of options here. So if this idea kind of worries you, don't let it worry you. There's plenty of options. If you would like to do your thesis at your work site must be approved. Okay. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. If you want more details about thesis, this is in your Webster ABA handbook. And so you should have received that by now if you're already in the program. If you haven't enrolled yet, please just email us back and we're happy to send that over. So let's talk about worksite requirements. The first worksite requirement is no supervision fees. So the site should not be charging you for supervision. This is something that means you're going to get good ethical supervision, so we're pretty strict on this. They also should be complying with all labor laws, so you should be paid for all work that benefits the company and appropriately classified as a W-2 versus 1099 employee. You have to have access for research, so they must permit students to conduct original research. This means recruiting, data collection, and intervention. There shouldn't be any non-competes or restrictive clauses that prevent you or the university from publishing or sharing your results or restrict your future employment. The worksite should be able to comply with the IRB, which you'll learn about more. There should be a qualified supervisor, so you have to have a BCBA to supervise you. They should be able to, comply with data and confidentiality standards. There should be appropriate physical or virtual settings for your research. There should be a good participant pool, okay? So there should be enough students or clients or whoever for you to work with. There should be the appropriate research and tools. So the ability to video record is really important. Also having some way for you to take data. There should be some type of ethical training and orientation. So, does everyone get orientation? Do they, require informed consent, that type of thing? The worksite should be willing to collaborate with the university. There should be timely administrative support. There should be a plan in case your supervisor goes on leave. We also look at a few additional things like conflict of interest transparency, so making sure that there's no institutional ties that need to be disclosed, talking about like different publication issues that might come up, safety and compliance issues that could come up, and can they actually like adhere with the timeline for you doing your thesis? So now let's move on to corporate partnerships. If you are worried about where to work, we have a few options. I keep a list of places that you could work. The first part of the list is our corporate partners. These are partnerships between companies and the universities. All of these partners offer some type of scholarship or tuition reimbursement. And because they're corporate partners, you also get a discount for the university. So this means you get some free school and you get a discount. All of these sites have been vetted, so they meet the thesis requirements as well. So this is my first part of the list. I also keep a list of smaller companies who maybe don't offer tuition reimbursement, but do have all of the qualifications for our thesis. And so that list is also available for you. And this is a nationwide list, okay? So there's plenty of companies in plenty of different locations. If you're in a location where we don't have someone, you let me know and I'll find some places there. We can reach out to different people as well. You're also always welcome to submit where you work, and then I'm able to send over the MOU that we have, which is just an agreement saying they meet those qualifications. So that's always an option as well. you are able to do any of those things. Okay, so these are all options for you. So if you don't have a work site, please let me know. Now I'm giving you a little bit of homework to wrap up. I would love for you to review the BACB handbook as well as the Webster ABA handbook. You should have the Webster ABA handbook. The BCBA handbook you find by just Googling BACB or BCBA handbook. It looks just like this. And so, as you can see, it's 73 pages long, but it will make your journey to becoming a BCBA so much easier. It has everything. It gives you information about the certification board, eligibility requirements, applying for your exam, the exam itself, and then what happens after you pass your exam. Okay. Tons and tons of information. So please review this. It'll be really helpful. Then I just want to thank you all for listening to me talk all about the program. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to help. I would love to have you in the program. I would love to get to know more about you or answer any questions that you have. So, like I said, please reach out if you have anything. Thank you so much.